Let's bring in our panel for the hour, and Republican strategist Matt Keelan, retired gunnery sergeant for the U.S. Marine Corps, Jessie Jane Duff, and founder of the Jack Brewer Foundation, former NFL player Jack Brewer. All right, guys, welcome. Jessie, you know, we've got these buses coming in from Texas to Chicago, and as we've been talking about, the mayor is saying, of course, it's racist, racist, racist. How do we get past this kind of, you know, nonsensical verbal attacks on policy issues?
Well, Republicans and Democrats used to be very united on this issue. It wasn't that long ago that we heard Barack Obama talk about immigration being a critical problem for the United States, illegal immigration, I must say. But slowly this has become just so, we're so far apart on this. And the enforcement of the border, the last guest failed to say one thing. If he was elected mayor, he would stop being a sanctuary city, that he would allow ICE officials to deport people who are in this country illegally. That was the standing of the federal government for how long, and these states have actually, and cities have defied federal law. So why can't we just get back to enforcing the very laws that are already on the books? That would probably be a great place to start, because the lawmakers in Congress haven't reversed those laws that have been passed by Democrats and Republicans. But he is right. Republicans have turned a blind eye to this for many, many years. But Donald Trump did attempt to get that wall up. Donald Trump was fought viciously by the courts not to have that wall. And we have to unite on this, because otherwise it's to the detriment of many cities, blue and red.
Right. And now, again, those blue cities are sort of seeing what these red communities are facing firsthand in Texas. But Jack Brewer, just on the issue of crime and what continues to happen in Chicago, doesn't the mayor owe it to the residents to provide them with safety, to support law enforcement, to ensure that these communities are a fine place to raise your families?
Of course she does. But, you know, a mayor like this spiritually is just not in tune with the real people who are hurting there in the cities of Chicago. You know, she speaks for the elitists and those that put her in power, and she speaks to things that are going to help her fundraise and raise money. And that's what's so sad, is that you don't really get a chance to hear the voices of those young kids in the streets that have to walk to school every day in fear of their life. And you don't hear about those single moms who are dealing with the massive amount of fatherlessness that's going on across the city of Chicago. You don't get to hear those stories because Lori Lightfoot is not in those communities touching them. And so that's the problem, is you don't really have a servant leader at the helm in Chicago. And that's what it's going to take. And that's the case in not just Chicago, but many cities across America, is that particularly when it's African-American cities that are run by African-American mayors, they're not really touching the people that they need to be touching. And I think if we're going to make this country great again, if we're going to get our cities back and get back on track, we need servant, Christian, godly men and women running these cities. And Lori Lightfoot is just not that.
Matt, last night, the president's address, the Marines behind him, that's a big point of discussion and contention today, whether they were being used as pawns in something that was obviously a very political staged event. What do you think of what they did yesterday, the White House using the military?
It was shameful, in my personal opinion, to have those two Marines standing behind him, to have the press secretary say it wasn't a political speech, but the whole time it was politics, 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 from a president who promised to unite us. This is the most divisive president in my lifetime, and that's saying something. But to have those men and women in uniform, the two behind him in the Marine Band on federal property, is absolutely shameful, but it smacks to the desperation of this White House. You know, who wasn't in the audience? The Senate candidate from Pennsylvania for the Democratic Party. Why wasn't he there? He doesn't want to be seen anywhere near Joe Biden because of his failed policies and the continued digging and digging and digging this hole of inflation that they just can't seem to get enough of.
Yeah, indeed. Panelists, we're going to offer plenty more discussion on that speech last night. Of course, it was a major primetime address, and reaction is still pouring in this morning, so stay with us if you could. Coming up, the New York City